I was polishing Grandma's old silver ring, a cherished keepsake she'd given me during our last visit, when my phone buzzed on my desk. The morning light streamed through the window of my small apartment in a quiet Columbus, Ohio suburb, illuminating my cluttered workspace laptop, open coffee mug steaming, and a potted fern I'd been nursing back to health. I glanced at the screen. "Dad." My stomach nodded as I answered, expecting news about Grandma's funeral arrangements. Instead, his voice sliced through the line like a blade. "You're not welcome, Grace. Stay away from the funeral. You'd only embarrass us with your boring life." The words hit me hard and I froze, the ring slipping from my fingers, clattering onto the desk with a sharp thud. My hands shook as I set the phone down, his words echoing in my mind. Embarrass them. At Grandma's funeral. I'm Grace, 32 years old, a financial analyst working remotely for a tech startup. My days are a mix of Zoom meetings, spreadsheets, and small joys, watering my plants, brewing coffee and catching up on podcasts during breaks. But for years I've been the backbone of my family, sending $1,200 every month to help with their bills even when it meant cutting back on my own expenses. I never complained though. My parents always favored my older sister Helen, the golden child who became a teacher and married well. They'd flaunt her achievements at every family gathering, Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, while I sat quietly, my contributions brushed aside. Grace is too serious, they'd say, as if my steady support meant nothing. But Grandma saw me. She'd hold my hand, her silver ring glinting, and whisper, "You're my rock." Grace, now with her gone. Dad's words felt like a betrayal of her memory. I picked up the ring, its cool metal grounding me, and stared out at the morning light. I'd spent my life trying to please them, but this was too much. Have you ever been pushed away by the ones you love most? That moment. I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. The sting of Dad's words lingered as I sat at my desk, the coffee I'd brewed now cold in its mug. Grandma's ring rested beside it, a silent witness to my hurt. My phone buzzed again, a text from Helen. "Grace, don't make a scene at the funeral. Just send the money for the flowers and stay home." I stared at the message, my chest tightening. Even in grief, they expected me to fund their display, to stay invisible while they mourned publicly. It wasn't the first time I remembered last 4th of July, at their house in Dayton, the backyard filled with laughter and barbecue I'd paid for, yet they toasted Helen's latest teaching award while I cleaned up the plates alone. "Helen's our pride," Dad had said, his eyes skipping over me. Helen, my older sister by 3 years, had always been the star of the family. At 35, she's a high school teacher with a knack for charming everyone. Blonde, poised, always dressed in pastel cardigans that scream perfect daughter. She'd post selfies on Instagram with captions like "blessed to be loved," while Dad and Mom shared her posts with pride, never mentioning the $1,200 I sent monthly to keep their lights on. Helen knew how to play the part, bringing homemade pies to family gatherings, gushing about her students, all while subtly reminding me I'd never understand her busy life because I was too focused on work. Her husband Tom, a real estate agent, only amplified her shine, calling her a saint while I sat in the background, my sacrifices unnoticed. For years, I'd sent $1,200 a month to cover their bills, electricity, groceries, even Dad's car repairs without a single thank you. They'd call me reliable but never valued. Grandma was the only one who saw me, who'd slip me her ring and say, "You're enough." Grace, now with her gone, their rejection cut deeper. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family, giving all you have just to be overlooked? I traced the ring's edge, its worn silver, catching the light. I'd spent years trying to earn their love, but this was the final straw. I pushed my cold tea aside and opened my laptop, the glow of the screen casting a pale light across my kitchen. Grandma's ring sat on the table, its silver surface reflecting my determination. I logged into my bank account, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. There it was, the $1,200 autopay to Dad, labeled family support, a monthly reminder of my role as their unseen provider. My hands trembled as I clicked edit, then cancel. The screen flashed. Payment stopped. "Are you sure?" I hesitated. memories of their demands flashing through my mind. Dad's car repairs, Helen's flower arrangements, all on my dime. But then I thought of Grandma, her voice echoing, "You're my rock." "Grace," I clicked. "Confirm." The finality of it hit me like a wave. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The ring seemed to glow in the dim light, cold but comforting, as if Grandma were there, nodding in approval. For the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a quiet strength settling in its place. I'd spent decades hoping for their love, but no more. I knew they'd notice the missing money soon. Dad always called when the payment didn't go through his voice, sharp with entitlement. But this time, I was ready to face their reaction. I wasn't their ATM anymore. Have you ever had to cut ties to protect yourself even when it hurt? I picked up the ring, slipping it into my pocket, its familiar weight grounding me. The Ohio night was quiet outside, the stars peeking through my window. I'd taken the first step, and there was no turning back now. The next evening, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree, buzzing incessantly on my desk. I was repotting my fern, the scent of fresh soil grounding me, but the notification shattered my peace. Dad's first text read, "Grace, the funeral's a mess. No flowers. Send the money now, or don't bother showing your face." Then Helen called, her voice shrill through the speaker. "How could you do this?" "Grace, everyone's staring at us. No flowers at a funeral. Fix this." I set the phone down, my hands steady despite their words. I glanced at Grandma's ring on the desk, its silver catching the glow of my lamp. It reminded me of her quiet strength, the way she'd always seen me when no one else did. I glanced at Grandma's ring on the table, its silver catching the glow of my lamp. It reminded me of her quiet strength, the way she'd always seen me when no one else did. I didn't reply. Instead, I stood and walked to the window, gazing at the Ohio sunset, its golden hues painting the sky. Their voices echoed in my mind, demanding entitled, as if I owed them my life. I thought of the funeral they'd planned, a grand affair in Dayton, with a polished casket and a choir, all funded by my silent contributions over the years. Now, without my money, their facade was crumbling, and they blamed me. But I was done being their scapegoat, done letting them use me to prop up their image. For once, I chose myself. I picked up the ring, holding it tightly, its cool metal grounding me in my resolve. What would you do if your family only cared when they needed something from you? The phone buzzed again, but I let it go to voicemail. The sunset faded, and I turned back to my knitting, the silence a small victory. The following morning, as I watered my fern in the quiet of my apartment, my phone rang with an unknown number. I set down the watering can, wiped my hands on my jeans, and answered, expecting a spam call. Instead, a calm voice introduced himself. "This is Mr. Thompson, your grandmother's lawyer. I'd like you to join a video call for the reading of her will this afternoon." My heart raced. Dad's words, "You're not welcome," still burned in my mind. But something in Mr. Thompson's steady tone gave me courage. I agreed. And at 2 p.m., I sat at my desk, laptop open, Grandma's ring in my pocket, its familiar weight a quiet comfort. The video call connected, and there they were. Dad, Helen, and her husband Tom, all in black. Their faces a mix of grief and disdain as they saw me. Helen rolled her eyes, muttering to Tom, while Dad's glare pierced through the screen. Mr. Thompson, a gray-haired man in a crisp suit, appeared in a separate window, holding a thick document. He cleared his throat, his voice cutting through the tension. "As per Mrs. Eleanor Carter's will, I'm here to announce her estate distribution." I braced myself, expecting nothing. Grandma had always been fair, and I assumed she'd split everything evenly. But then Mr. Thompson looked at me, his eyes kind. "Grace, your grandmother left you everything. The house in Dayton, her savings, the family land in rural Ohio. You own it all," she wrote. "Grace was my rock, the only one who truly saw me." The room froze. Helen's jaw dropped, her eyes wide with shock. Dad's face turned crimson, his hands gripping the table. Tom stared at me stunned. I felt the ring in my pocket, its weight a silent affirmation of Grandma's love. My eyes stung with tears, but I smiled a trembling, proud smile. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson," I said, my voice quivering with relief and vindication. The truth had spoken for me, and their masks were falling fast. The silence on the video call was deafening, broken only by Dad stammering. "This can't be right. Helen deserves that house. She's the one who visited." Helen snapped, her voice sharp. "Grace, you knew about this, didn't you? You've been scheming behind our backs." Her accusation stung, but I stayed calm. My years of keeping composure in boardrooms. Kicking in, Mr. Thompson raised a hand, his tone firm. "Mrs. Carter's decision is final." She wrote a letter stating, Grace was her rock, the only one who truly understood her. Grace supported her quietly, visiting, listening, helping with her bills when no one else did. His words hit like a spotlight, illuminating years of my silent devotion. I looked at their faces, Dad's flushed with anger, Helen's twisted with jealousy, Tom's wide-eyed with shock. For the first time I saw them as they truly were, a family who'd taken me for granted, who'd built their pride on my sacrifices. I thought of Grandma, her warm hand slipping the ring onto my finger, her voice saying, "You're enough, Grace. I didn't need their approval anymore." "Thank you, Mr. Thompson," I said again, my voice steady, and I clicked leave meeting. Their stunned faces disappeared from my screen. I stepped onto my porch, the Ohio breeze cool against my skin, carrying the scent of blooming lilacs from my garden. I pulled Grandma's ring from my pocket, its silver glinting in the sunlight. It felt heavier now, not with burden, but with meaning. Grandma had seen me, had trusted me with her legacy. I didn't need their validation. I'd found my worth through her love, through the quiet strength I'd carried all these years. The sky stretched wide above me, a canvas of blue and gold, and for the first time in decades, I felt truly free. Their secrets had unraveled, and I was the one standing tall. A week later, as I sipped tea in my kitchen, an email from Dad popped up on my laptop. "Grace, we're sorry for what we said, but the house taxes are due next month. You've got the money now. Help us out for family's sake." I stared at the screen, the words "for family's sake" ringing hollow. They hadn't changed. They were still the same people who'd dismissed me, who'd banned me from Grandma's funeral. I thought of the years I'd given them everything, only to be cast aside when I wasn't useful. Grandma's ring sat on the table, its silver, a quiet reminder of her trust in me. I typed a reply, my fingers steady. "Helen can pay half, or you figure it out. I've done enough for this family." I hit send, a mix of sadness and relief washing over me. I'd spent decades hoping for their love, but now I saw the truth. They'd never change, and I didn't need them to. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, the Ohio skyline glowing with the soft hues of dusk. The sunset painted the horizon gold, a promise of new beginnings. I thought of Grandma, her laughter echoing in my memory, her ring a symbol of the love I'd always had even when they couldn't give it. Have you ever had to say no to family to protect your peace? I picked up my tea, the warmth of the cup soothing my hands. For the first time, I felt at peace with my choice. I wasn't their provider anymore. I was Grace, the woman. Grandma had seen the woman I was finally becoming. 2 weeks later, I heard a sharp knock at my door. I opened it to find Dad and Helen standing on my porch, their faces a mix of anger and desperation. Dad's voice boomed. "Grace, you need to sign over the house. It's not fair. We're your family. You owe us." Helen chimed in, her tone biting. "You've always been selfish, keeping this from us." Their words were a storm, but I stood firm, my years of quiet strength rising to the surface. I thought of Grandma, her ring now on my finger, its weight a steady anchor. "I owe myself more," I said, my voice calm but unyielding. "Grandma chose me for a reason. She saw me when you didn't. I'm done being your fallback." Dad's face reddened and Helen scoffed, but I didn't flinch. "You can leave now," I added, stepping back. They stormed off, slamming their car doors as they drove away. I locked my front door, the click of the bolt echoing in the quiet house. I walked to the window, the Ohio breeze rustling through the open pane carrying the scent of my lilac garden. I looked at the ring on my finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had always belonged there. I'd spent decades seeking their approval. But now I'd written the final chapter of their control over me. I was free to live for myself, to honor Grandma's legacy in my own way. The silence settled around me, a peaceful weight, and I knew I'd made the right choice. I wasn't their provider or their scapegoat. I was Grace, and that was enough. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window, casting a warm glow across the room. Grandma's ring caught the light, its silver surface shimmering as I sipped my chamomile tea. I'd started a journal sketching out plans to turn Grandma's Dayton house into a community center. A dream she'd shared with me during our long talks on her porch swing, a place for people to gather. Grace, she'd said, her eyes bright with hope, a place where everyone feels seen. I smiled at the memory, my pen moving across the page as I listed ideas. A library corner, knitting classes, a garden for the kids. It felt right, a way to honor her love, to give back, in the way she'd always wanted. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. For decades, I'd poured my heart into a family that couldn't see me, sending money, showing up, hoping for their love. But Grandma had seen me. She'd slipped her ring onto my finger, called me her rock, trusted me with her legacy. Through her, I'd found my worth, not in their approval, but in the quiet strength I'd carried all along. I looked out at my garden, the lilacs blooming in the Ohio sun, their purple petals a promise of spring. Family isn't about what you owe. It's about who sees your worth, who lifts you up when others tear you down. I'd learned to choose myself, to set boundaries, to build a life that felt like freedom. I set my journal down and walked to the porch, the breeze warm against my skin. The ring felt light on my finger, a symbol of the love I'd always had, the love I now gave myself. When did you last choose yourself over obligation? What legacy do you want to leave behind? I hope my story inspires you to find your own strength, to see your own worth even when others can't. Share your story. I'd love to hear how you found your freedom, how you've honored the ones who truly saw you.